Ever wondered why so many of the ancient teachings seem to say the same thing? Because these prophets, these monks, these sages, they're all tapping into a state of mind where the truth becomes obvious. A state of oneness, of wholeness, of stillness. But in today's day and age, in this attention economy, that stillness can be even more distant and hard to attain. Well, here's a man you've never heard of, and that's intentional. His name's Jim George, and he's been working behind the scenes for decades, teaching powerful techniques to get into this state of stillness, and then frameworks to support it throughout your day. But Jim's been living so deeply in this state of stillness, of oneness, that he insists it's not about him and his story. In fact, it's the story, the narrative, the voice in your mind that's standing between you and that oneness in the first place. And so he's very reluctant to make this about him. But it's incredibly important for us to share this message because of what it can do for people, because of what it's done for us. So what we did is we interviewed 4 of Jim's clients. People have been working with Jim for years, sometimes decades, each who have found a lot of success in their respective industries, each using these tools to bring stillness to their work and their lives. So without further ado, I'll let them tell their stories of the man with no story. Meet the Titans. Would you mind please introducing yourself?
My name is Matt Pohlson. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Omaze.
My name's Larry Kasanoff. I'm a film producer. I made over 250 movies, including Dirty Dancing, Platoon, Terminator 2, True Lies, Mortal Kombat, Lego Star Wars, and more.
Nick Kaiser co-founded and own a private equity fund. What we do is we buy and sell technology companies.
I'm Walter Driver. I'm a co-founder and co-CEO at Scopely.
Who is Jim George?
Who is Jim George? Wow, that's a big question.
Jim George, to me, is the most interesting, most intelligent person I've ever met.
Because I view Jim George as a trainer for the soul.
He is a friend, he is a mentor, incredible advisor. There's no one who's more important to me in my life.
He's a mentor, he's a guide, he's a teacher.
But he's also a great guy. I mean, he's funny, he's creative, he's interesting. I could talk to him for hours. I mean, he's a great friend. I mean, he's just a great guy. And so he's not some weirdo dude you go see at the top of the mountain.
I was not a person who would have been like first in line to go meet a stillness teacher. I would have had my skepticism, but meeting Jim, that just kind of melts away.
I mean, Jim is truly the smartest person that I've ever met. He's the most brilliant mind that I've ever encountered. He seems to have the sponge-like attributes of a 7-year-old and the wisdom of somebody who's been around for hundreds of years. So his mind is truly an extraordinary thing.
I've never met anybody who understands quantum physics more, or neuroscience more, or the history of mythology more, or you name a topic, and Jim can just go there, to the point where the experts in those fields recognize the same way.
He walks the walk, meaning he practices stillness. He's taken everything from the top philosophers to recent neuroscientists, to quantum physics, to ancient breath work, to meditation, and he has plucked like the jewels of all of these teachings that he has devoured and poured himself into.
You see how truly connected he is to what he's talking about, how truly knowledgeable he is to what he's talking about, and what an expert he is communicating what he's talking about to others. He gives better advice than the best executive coach on what to do around work. He gives better advice than the best therapist to what to do about your family, because he's just grounded in truth, and he's grounded in these like universal principles that work every time.
So I called Thich Nhat Hanh because I thought this wonderful Zen Buddhist peaceful monk would be good inspiration for a character in Mortal Kombat. And I became really good friends with him, and I wound up making a documentary on him, and that opened my eyes to the world of mindfulness. And then Jim George opened my eyes to the world of stillness. The only 2 people in the world I've ever met like that are Ty and Jim, because they not only are phenomenal at what they do, there isn't an insincere, phony, or untrue bone in their body. They walk the walk, they talk the talk, there's no bullshit, there's no fake, there's no this, but that, there's nothing. They are the most pure people I've ever met, just complete pure souls.
How did you meet him?
So I have to tell you my story of Jim George. I met Jim George a long time ago when we started our animation studio. And Jim was our animation guru, he was our animation director, he was our animation designer and artist. And To be clear, and I'm not saying this to be flattering, there is no better than Jim. There's no better animation artist, drawer than Jim. And one day Jim came to me and said, well, listen, so I quit. I'm like, you can't quit. You're going to Disney. What are you doing? We'll double their salary. What are you talking about? I mean, Jim was like a top animator. He goes, yeah, I want to do this. And I'm like, what? He left an incredibly lucrative career to go help people, which is amazing in itself. When I asked him about that one day, he said, you know, I used to animate characters, breathe life into characters, and now I can breathe life, in quotes, into human beings. I can eat, I know how to make the character look happy. It's a little more challenging to make the person be happy, but that's what I do now. And to want to do that and to leave such a lucrative career to do that is an extraordinary thing. Most people in the world would never even consider it, and he's great at it.
I like to say I mortgaged my 20s and 30s for material success. I traded my time for money. I grew up poor, dirt poor, raised in Arkansas. I've reached what I thought was success, which was going to make me happy, and it hasn't. What do I do now? I was actually traveling on a wedding and had taken a date to that wedding and described a few things that were going on in my life and some things that I was struggling with. And she actually couldn't describe who Jim was or what Jim was. And she said, you just have to meet this guy. She introduced me to Jim. I set up a meeting, went in and met with him. And I now understand why she couldn't describe it.
I first heard about Jim under pretty crazy circumstances. I just had a near-death experience. I had flatlined for 4.5 minutes, and I was trying to make sense of what had happened. And I had a good friend, he was talking about this mentor he had who was this billionaire, but he was really down to earth, really wealthy guy. And he said to him, you know, it's really rare to meet someone with your financial means who has your perspective, but it's even rarer to meet someone with your financial means whose kids have that perspective. He said, what's your secret? He said, I've been going to a stillness teacher. Like, what's a stillness teacher? And he said, you just got to go. So I went to Jim, and it was life-changing.
I thank Matt Pohlson for introducing me to Jim. I've gotten a lot of great introductions in my life, and the introduction to Jim was one of the most transformative gifts that I've ever been given.
What have you learned?
Jim George has taught me about volitional state change, and you know, all of the feelings and all of the thoughts that you have are colored by the state that you're in. Sometimes the state you're in is not conducive to doing your best work or having your best ideas or helping navigate stress and complexity in a group. So the ability to get still is kind of the first tool of being able to change the state you're in on demand, and then be able to decide what state you actually want to be in for that given situation you're in.
Jim teaches that you can control your state of mind. And that's everything in the world. If you can control your state of mind, I think that's truly, truly everything. And again, all these lessons work through Jim as the coach and the trainer, or whatever you want to call him. But what they really teach you is it's your mind, and you can control your state of mind, and you can control it. And knowing that is just amazing. You still have to be reminded of it all the time. But I feel it's like a good trainer. I got to keep practicing. But knowing that you have the control and you can still your mind is an incredible gift.
So getting still, if you do it on a daily basis, a weekly basis, if you just do it for 5 minutes a day and you build up to 10 minutes a day, it's really the practice of being present and not letting your mind run wild with, you know, future expectations or get bogged down on what happened an hour ago, what happened a week ago, what is troubling me from 3 months ago. And it's just getting still and clearing your mind and getting a reboot. And what that does is a lot. You can get very deep or you can be very shallow, but the present is really all we have. It starts to change your perspectives on a lot of things, and I'll give you a concrete example. You can control your emotions better, and so at work, you know, not letting your emotions or fear drive your behavior and being cool, calm, and collected on a daily basis in high-stress environments is very beneficial.
I use stillness 100 times a day. in my work. I used to have a hard time controlling my my frustrations. I would never yell. I was never like that. But I was a company with 200 people. You get in situations where things are not going how you want them to be, and you feel frustration about that. And even though I wouldn't verbalize that, I wasn't very good at hiding it. Stillness has taught me, like in those moments, just to find it and to, rather than get down into the problem, to rise above the problem.
So I just wanted to jump in here really quickly, because a lot of the techniques that Matt's talking about, Jim's actually recorded and we've got available on our course platform. You can see all the links in the description below. We've got some audio-based stillness techniques and also some courses where Jim walks you through how and when to use them. Anyway, let's get back to it.
And being able to see the things that are happening around you, from above occasionally, instead of being in it 100% of the time and feeling like these things are happening to you, instead of maybe that they're happening for you. Yeah, for me, stillness is just a calming of all the noise in my mind, a chance to get still and reconnected with who I really am and why I'm really here. And I try to practice it at the times when it's most valuable to me to get connected with who I really am and to calm my mind. And so I like to do it first thing in the morning to start my day. I like to do it in between meetings and in transitional moments, like when I'm leaving work and I'm coming home to see my kids and I want to be a better version of myself. I want to disconnect from the stress of work and try to be ready to connect with them on a deeper level. What's more important than having a path to peace and a sense of wholeness and a deeper sense of connection with the people you love and care about, and a deeper awareness of who you are and what you're doing in this world? And your future isn't really ahead of you, it is inside you, and it's sort of like what state you're in is going to determine the future direction of your life, and that's why this work is so extraordinarily valuable.
And I think it tapped into something that I knew that was true inside. Jim talks about this idea that we remember this versus we discover this. I really think that's a really important distinction, because I think it's in all of us, and just some of us get to remember that it's there. And so it just like, I believe in the information in the body. I believe in the truth of the body, and it was like telling me like this is real, and I instantaneously could incorporate it into my work. Like the next day, I was using breathing exercises that helped me rise above problems and solve them better, like immediately. And so that's why I did it. I put a lot of time in this because I think I get a lot out of it, and I think it's very tangible and measurable.
Can you share any special experiences you've had with Jim?
I think about special experiences I've had with Jim. Truly every time that I've spent with him has been a special experience. Every time that you leave Jim, you feel like a different person than you did walking in, a better person, a person that you want to be more often. I would say the hallmark of my experiences with Jim is that every time that I leave him, I spend the first 10 to 20 minutes furiously taking notes on the insights that I've gathered from getting still in his presence, the things that I've seen more clearly, and the things that I just don't want to forget that Jim has told me, because he drops more knowledge in 90 minutes than you might encounter in a year of going about your day-to-day life. And I don't want to forget any of it. So I would say the most distinctive memory I have is just furiously writing things down every time I leave a session with Jim.
I thought, I'll keep writing down little notes about things I want to improve or ways I want to get more still, and then I'll stop going whenever I stop writing notes. I'm going, wait, look, I don't. These are today's notes. I'm going today, and I didn't do this for this interview. These are today's notes of what I'm talking to Jim about. So I guess the day will never come when I don't have notes.
One of the most intense memories I have with Jim is we did this exercise called love bombing, where you work with Jim, you focus, and you're sending love to someone who's not in the room. They could be across the world. The person I had selected was actually adversarial in that moment. They were doing something, I can't really share the details, but they were doing something that was very damaging to my company, had real significant potential consequences for us. And I was starting to get into a point where I was feeling such anger towards that person that it was starting to like envelop me a little bit, and I didn't want to feel that. And I said to Jim, I said, look, whatever happens here, I don't want to go forward in anger. And so I'd like to love bomb this person, and I'm not doing it to try to, manipulate this situation. I just purely want to like feel that rather than operating from a place of fear or anger. So we did that together, and it was, all you're doing is just kind of, he's helping you visualize where that person is in the world and what it means to send energy to them and send love to them. And again, we've seen through quantum entanglements and other things that you can, like, frequency can travel a long distance. And so we did it, and we're doing this exercise, and he's guiding me to this person, and I start to like feel like I'm getting closer and closer, and like kind of pure, and my intention was pure enough that I just kept kind of going forward. And then all of a sudden, like, something happened, and like the energy started flowing through me, and I really do think it was that fundamental substrate. And I'm rocking right now because that's what was happening. It was like this much, and I was not in control of it. And so it was like, I'm sitting there and I'm looking at Jim like, what the fuck is going on right now? And like, I feel crazy even saying it, because if I was on the other side of the camera, I'd be like, this guy was on that, whatever, he was doing a drug or whatever it was. I wasn't. I was totally sober. And I just like felt it, and it really got so big. And this went on for like minutes. It wasn't just like a quick like thing. And I literally, I was like, am I doing this? I don't think I'm doing this. And it just kept pushing through me. And then finally, like, I kind of like settled, and then we looked at each other, and it was like, that was wild. The energy comes through you rather than by you, it's through you. And I think that's what the work was, coming through me. And that was really powerful.
And there's a glass of water in front of me, and I haven't touched it. He asked me if I want to get still, and I said, sure. So we take a few deep breaths. He says, take all the stories of your past and all the stories that your mind is telling you of the future, and basically let them go. And just be here in the present. And we're just staring at each other. And he starts to lead me through dropping into stillness. And I'm still staring at him. And the walls literally are starting to move. His face is moving. I'm seeing a different person. And he says to me, now, I can tell that you've dropped into stillness. I've noticed you haven't touched that water, but if you had, you probably would be telling me that I put acid or some sort of drug in that water. And he was absolutely right. I mean, I'm in a stillness state, and I'm seeing images as if I had taken a drug. And we come out of it, and I'm like, this is the first experience with it. I'm like, what the hell is this? He said we could do phone sessions, and I'm thinking to myself, nah, that's not going to be the same. And so we started to do the phone sessions. I've been on my phone in my office, and there's never been static on my phone. And there's literal static where we almost can't communicate with each other because the phone is about to, it felt like blow up, but it's just super staticky. So there was some level of energy going through the phone, this is going to sound crazy, going through the phone back and forth that was on another level. It can't be explained. And it didn't repeat ever again, other than when I'm on the phone with Jim George in an in-depth session. And it's things like that you just can't explain, and things like that people that haven't experienced it would be like, it's woo-woo, okay, whatever, that didn't happen. It happened.
And just the fact that it works, and the fact that there's something like that out there that works, that, as I said, is no drugs, there's no anything, is amazing. And you think, why the hell doesn't everybody do this?
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I've said it to Jim. I think Jim knows that I love him.
I've never been more grateful to meet a person than Jim. No one has had a bigger impact on my life. He's helped me through my most difficult times, and I'm so grateful that he has channeled all his wisdom and learning and blood, sweat, and tears into this incredible corpus of knowledge that is palatable and digestible and usable and practical for people. There's no one whose teaching I would recommend higher. If I could make it so all the world knew the teachings of any one person, I would choose Jim, hands down. Not Gandhi, not Buddha, I would choose Jim. Because I think he makes it very practical for the age we're in right now. I think he makes it very practical for your daily life. I think he makes it very practical. You see the difference in the results very fast. And I think over time, it leads to a much more fulfilled and happy individual life. And if we can spread it far enough, it will lead to a much more fulfilled and happy world.
If there's any one person I want to give more of to other people that I've ever met in my life, it would be Jim George. And the last person I would think of that would that want to promote or commercialize himself, it would be Jim George. But I think he's starting to understand how profound the impact he's had on the people that he's spent time with. And I know he feels called to share it with more people. And I'm thrilled that it's happening via still life, because I would love to give the gift of stillness to everyone in my life and everyone in the world. And so I think the work that you guys are doing is a real gift as well. So thank you for doing it.
There are very few bodhisattvas, as they say in the world, compassionate listeners, helpers, almost mythical creatures, and Jim is one of them. And if you get the opportunity to get near one, talk to one, listen to one, meet one, have a session with one, take a course with one, listen to an app from one, don't deny yourself that opportunity, because it'll change your life.
I just want to take a minute to thank these guys. As you can probably imagine, they've got a pretty high premium on their time, and to not only take the time, but to be so open and inclusive about their experiences with Jim, it says a lot about their character and their values. Just knowing that there are people that are so involved in this Western world, people who have won the game, but have such a deep grounding, gives me a hell of a lot of hope. And as an aspiring entrepreneur, I just want you all to know that I've taken note of attributes that I'm going to emulate within myself. You're all great role models. So thank you, Matt, Larry, Nick, and Walter. Seriously. Well, it seems like there's one more person to thank, but this guy's a little bit more slippery, because he'll deflect all credit over to stillness. And as usual, he's spot on. Because it's that space within each of us. It's that space within us that holds the answers. That's the one that sheds light on the truths about ourselves. It's not him, it's not anybody else. It's in here. However, it takes a real human to discover that. And it takes a lot of discipline and persistence to be able to channel it and communicate it like you have, Jim. So thank you, because if this video is testament to anything, it should be testament to the impact that you've had on all of our lives.